I'm D. Watkins with Salon, and today I'll be joined by multiple award-winning, including a Peabody, writer and filmmaker Dream Hampton. Time has named her as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, and rightfully so. Some of her works include It's a Hard Truth, Ain't It?, Ladies First, Surviving R. Kelly, and Fresh Water. Today we'll be talking about her amazing new documentary, It Was All a Dream. Welcome.
Hey.
Congratulations on the new project.
Thank you.
The film takes place between 93 and 95, and it's just so raw and nostalgic. It took me into my middle school and high school days, but it's a story of hip hop, and I feel like so many viewers who were alive and active and off the porch during that particular time are just going to transport back to where they were when Biggie was alive, laughing and joking and making music. Can you start off by talking about the space and time you collected the footage and decided to release the film? Because I wonder about that reflective voice.
Yeah, there's a huge gap between when I recorded it and when we released it of 30 years. Right, yeah. So I had a documentary class at NYU. I was a film student when I came here. Never went to J school. I kind of fell into writing when I became the photo editor of The Source. I was at The Source for 18 months when I was 19. It kind of gets overstated. But during that—
It seems like it was longer. Yeah, it seems like you built it brick by brick.
You know what, I did not. I absolutely did not. And I think that there's like a conflation. Like I'll have people be like, I love that article you wrote of Tupac and Vibe. I'm like, yep, that's Kevin Powell. Or the one people just conflate. They're like, oh, when you were the editor-in-chief of The Source, I'm Kim Azario, not me. But but that's the thing about memory, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you have an idea of what happened and it's your story and you're sticking to it. Right. So in my last few projects, I have been considering this question of how we remember things, what kind of lights and nostalgic kind of glow. That's what It Was All a Dream, the title is about. More than my name or Biggie's song, Juicy, I chose that title because we put a glow, like a retroactive glow on that era. And it is soft in our memories. It is, if it has this space. It has become the 60s, 70s that was what that represented for us, if you're Gen X or older millennials. But there was also a truth to it. And I'm glad that I captured some of that truth, that I had the cameras rolling, because I had this documentary class at NYU. And I started shooting. 30 years later, I empty out my storage space and I say, what can we do with this footage?
The most powerful part of the film is your voice. It is a visual memoir. Your worldview at the time, the recordings, you talking over those recordings, it's just like, it's poetic. As a young filmmaker coming from Detroit and then working at The Source, what were some of your biggest surprises about just coming into hip hop culture at 19 years old at that transformative time?
I'm KRS-One, it doesn't define things for me. Mm-hmm. So my definition of culture is that it has food. I know people talk about office culture or subway culture, but culture has food. So hip hop isn't a culture, it's a genre of music in Black culture. Mm-hmm. But in terms of people who love that genre, one of the things that was surprising to me about, say, coming to New York was, in 1990, was how, and of course this is gonna bubble up and actually become a fatal kind of standoff, but was how regional stuff was. Like I grew up in Detroit, listening to music from, I learned about, super sad, but I learned about sex from Too Short.
That's another film.
And Prince, right? Like, I'm in the 8th grade, like, okay. So, I had, my tastes. I was listening to Eazy-E. That was one of the first videos that meant something to me.
What was that, Boys in the Hood? Or?
No, well, Boys in the Hood, but We Want Easy was the one where he broke out through the.
Yeah, that was hard. That was hard.
So Baltimore, I'm sure, we just didn't, we weren't like married to New York. Music could come from, I loved special ed. I loved, you know, Rakim, like changed my life. You know what I'm saying? I ran away from home to see Run DMC perform. My mother told me that I couldn't go. I was like 12. And I was like, when she went to work, I like took the bus downtown to Hart Plaza to see Run DMC perform. So, I mean, what I was surprised about when I got to New York was how in their own bubble they were. Like I was the only one at one point there were like only 5 or 6 of us in the office. I was the only woman, but I was also the only non-East Coaster, you know? They were either from Philly, DC, or New York. And so they were just siloed. And so I was really surprised. So when I did those stories like Snoop and Tupac, and I wasn't a staff member when I did those stories, when I did those profiles, which are like 2 kind of career defining profiles for me back then, it was only because no one in the office wanted to do it.
Oh, wow.
They were like, Brenda's got a baby, whatever. Like, I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, Tupac is way bigger than whatever like song he has out now. They were like, yeah, you go to LA and do it then. Snoop, same thing. I mean, The Chronic had come out, and there was this weird way. It would become impossible once Doggy Style came out, but there was this weird way where New York was trying to resist The Chronic. Which wasn't happening anywhere else in the country, right? Like, I mean, obviously in LA, like everywhere you went, but also in Detroit, also in the South, also, you know. So it was a wild time to see that regionalism. I don't know, being in the source offices was the first time I heard a white person use the N-word. I almost got kicked out.
Yeah,
it was like an MC, and I like got into a fight with them. And I was looking around the office like, y'all okay with this? So
that's crazy.
New York is permissive in a way that Detroit isn't back then. So it has, and I get that this was the hip hop, like the movement that was growing here. Maybe you can call it a movement, not a culture. Was multiracial always. You know what I'm saying? Multicultural always. But those were some of the things that surprised me.
As being the only woman, obviously can be difficult, but it's in the film, like we see you challenging misogyny. It didn't matter if you were talking to Biggie or Guru. Like, I appreciated the fact that you didn't have pixel choices. You constantly told the truth. In the film, you said, your mother and her friends sucked their teeth at you, bewildered at your loyalty to a genre bent on your destruction. I was like, damn. How were you able to navigate that world?
That was an article that I wrote for Spin Magazine.
Oh, word.
Yeah, it was called Bitches Are So Much More Than Tricks and Hoes, Hoes and Tricks or whatever. So the narration that you talked about earlier is me reading articles from that era, which was a brilliant idea that my 2 co-producers came up with, David Feinberg and Salome Haralima. What it is though is evidence that we were always talking back to this genre. I don't need to like present myself as evidence. We have Roxanne Shante at 12 years old. Like, you want to make a song about like street harassing a sister? Like, trying to walk down the damn street. I'm a 12, 13-year-old who's about to read you grown men, right? So this is like literally the beginning of women in hip hop, is us talking back, as Bell Hooks would say. At the time, I'm 19, I'm reading Bell Hooks, I'm a budding baby Black feminist. I'm kind of like throwing all my ideas out at these men, trying to see what sticks. In my friendship circles, we're having reading groups. We're like trying to read books like, you know, Ain't I a Woman? And Paula Marshall and Audre Lorde. And so it's just a conversation that we were having. And I just happened to be having it on camera.
I mean, it's like so many people have these feelings. Like, I mean, I think it's just a bravery to just be a person who calls people out on that shit. Like, because I've just been around so many people who feel away and they just hold it in.
Yeah. You know, it's like at my big age, I am just realizing that most people are conflict averse.
Yeah.
I know that shouldn't be like a revelation at this age.
I probably will be making more money if I'll be running towards conflict. Like, I'm really into that shit.
Yeah, but you know what? It's exhausting. And I'm not like looking to turn up all the time at all. I'm also not, I'm here to just be at a party also. Like, I don't want to have to, and I wasn't it's not like I'm in the middle of the dance floor like, what do you mean? Da 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 da. You know, we were all like dancing to this music. We were all consuming it, loving parts of it, but it was necessary to do some disrupting too, and it still is.
Yeah, no, you talk about men needing to check men, which is
Right.
100% true. And when I was watching it, I was thinking, I was like, wow. I was wondering if there was like anyone in the industry who you were around that just got it and that you didn't really have to fully explain these things to. And then I thought about my own life, because everything I learned about misogyny in relationships and business and all of these different things came from my friends who are women. Like, I didn't get these lessons from men. From men, I got conquer, destroy, find the prey, eat it. And and then talk over everyone else when they're talking is what I learned from men. So it's like, but from my women friends, like, obviously they shouldn't be responsible for having to teach me these things, but it's just where these lessons came from. Was there any dudes who got it back then, or were we all just kind of
it doesn't have to be with the industry. I mean, I had friends in the scene that you're talking about. We're standing outside of Roscoe's. I'm with James Bernard, who was one of the founding editors of The Source. I'm with Bilal Polson, who was my friend that I went to NYU with, and this brother Kwanzaa Greaves. And so who used to work at Rap Pages. And so we're in LA at the Hollywood and Gower, Roscoe's. And yeah, we're having this conversation about whose responsibility is it to like check misogyny. Gangster rap at the time was like growing. And Kwanzaa's trying to lecture me about how I need to talk to my sisters. And I'm like, I'm gonna be in y'all face forever. By the way, do not remember that. It was like, that was when I got that footage and like pulled it up and was watching it. I do not remember shooting that. I remember the dress. I was like, oh, I wish I had that pink dress. I don't remember it, but it's evidence that I guess I've been involved in these conversations forever. Bilal, one of the brothers that's standing outside with me, and dream, trying to like, it's a cipher. You're seeing like a very organic cipher that just happened to have a camera on it. Like I don't know if we just finished eating or we're waiting to go in Roscoe's, but Black people naturally circle up, and here I am in a circle full of men, which is like often the case with me. I don't have no idea why. I have a lot of masculine energy. So this binary about what women do and men do, whatever. Like if you're not interested in being with men, women comport themselves in a certain way. Like even the brother friends of mine who like want to engage me that way don't want to wife that, right? Like you'll see like, I don't know, not Shannon Sharp or Ocho Cinco. Yeah, like they'll have some, I forgot who they just had on recently. Maybe Amanda Seals or something. I don't know.
Amanda Seals.
I don't watch Shannon Sharp, but I saw something going viral where they were talking about, well, this is why she's single, right? Yeah. And the truth, and it was so, people were like dragging them for it, but that is the majority of men I know. Like they actually don't want all of this yapping like at home, right? Chris Rock has a whole thing like, fuck me, feed me, right? And I wish that like, even the like Black feminist men I know, they're not like, they haven't evolved beyond like these kind of patriarchal, kind of like, this privilege.
Roles,
yeah, exactly.
The privilege.
It is a privilege. And to give that up, we talk about white folks all the time, and that we've gone viral and it's already cemented in the conversation, at least if you're on Twitter, that, Black men are the white people of Black people, right?
People don't give up privilege in America in general. It's some currency.
It's power. It's power. And even if it's only in the domestic space of your own home. Long story long, like, I'm engaging these brothers because I don't have, there's nothing. And one of the mistakes women make too is that we'll comport ourselves into the girlfriend role even when that's not even on the horizon, right? Like, it's like the kind of quiet, like don't say. So we have conversations in our own spaces that may be more honest. And sometimes we don't give that to men, A, because they don't want to make space for it. B, because we know that makes us like less attractive, to them. It's like it's like an instinct that we just know, right? Right. But I just don't give a fuck. Like I don't need to be like, I don't need to be desired by people that I have absolutely no desire for, right? So that whole...
Even when you earn it, if you want to be desired by somebody and you have to kind of minimize or shrink yourself in certain ways, it kind of wears off quickly because it gets
Well, that's what I'm saying about comporting. Yeah, but people do that for decades in marriages. Yeah. I mean, it's the story of our grandparents, I mean, like, older men will wake up one day and realize that they're married to this stranger because the woman has stopped giving a fuck and stopped like doing the comportment piece, right? But yeah, I don't know how to do that anyway. I'm not interested in marriage, so then that takes me, I can like, that wipes a whole thing clean for me, you know what I mean? And then I can have the relationship that I wanna have, which is one, for me, of like wanting to exchange ideas. When Z turned 50, I like sent him a text like, happy birthday, it's been really fun exchanging ideas with you for 25 years, right? Because that's what we've been involved in, right? That's a long way of answering your question about like, it's not just men in the industry, it's men in my life. Bilal, who's standing out in front of me, outside of Roscoe's with me, teaches, is a principal in a high school at Long Island. And he came up to me at this thing where they honored me at the New Museum recently, and said to me, like, he wanted to tell me like how I have affected, like our conversations from when we were in our 20s affected how he's raised his sons, his children, how he interacts with his wife. So to what you're saying, I know that this role that women like me, which is like the friend role, this kind of like, you know, platonic, you know, that we almost become desexualized to them. Like they know that there's not going to be that. So now we can get onto the idea of talking about ideas.
Right. One of the things that I love about the film so much, and this is again through your commentary, is you bring a very human element outside of the music to these different figures. The playfulness of Biggie, calling Wu-Tang sci-fi. Is this how you felt about how you looked at these artists in that particular moment, or is this something that you like that came on you years after being in that space?
So everything I'm saying in that was written in that era.
In that era. Oh wow.
Yeah, so what I didn't want temporarily, I wanted to keep the film very much in that era. I didn't want to have 50-year-old me talking to 23-year-old me. So when you're hearing me call, you know, them dusted sci-fi, I was talking about Wu, that is actually from a review of a RZA album, a terrible RZA album.
Was it Bobby Digital?
Yes, Bobby Digital, that I did in Village Voice, right? Again, my editor, my editor, David Feinberg, didn't know me. He didn't know my work.
Right.
And so when he came on to do this project with me, he went on dreamhampton.com and started doing something I never do, which is reading my old articles, right? And so he found things that totally overlaid now and had me read them, and it just tied it together. Because the note I was getting was, we want more of your voice in it.
So how do you look at yourself now as a director? Like you were making this as a film student, and now you have all of these like different films and projects in the world. Any harsh critiques or any praise or any?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Virgo, so I'm constantly, like last night I was like, oh my God, the sound dropped out here. Oh my God, there's a black thing. Like I called the team this morning. They want to be hungover in celebratory mode. I was like, I have 8 notes of things that like, and we just paid money for this DCP and we need to fix this. And you know, so that's me as a director, like constantly, it's the same things being a critic, like wanting to get things not perfect, but wanting to, you know, push it to where it's supposed to be, right? But the audience reaction was so good last night. I wish you'd been there.
I wish I could have been.
It was the ideal audience. I'm probably never gonna have that again. Like, it was a combination. It wasn't all Gen X folks, but it was a combination of different eras of people, but who, like, they clapped when Bones Malone, a writer who, you know, was very much a part of like, yeah, he was. People talk about hip hop journalism. Bones kind of invented it, right? And people clapped when he came on screen, and there was just this great reaction. So that felt amazing.
One of the things that I also took away from the film, and this is kind of like in connection to like some of the earlier pieces that I wrote myself, is a lot of us, when we lose our older brothers and our fathers to the streets, when we're like little kids, we don't really get the opportunity to like know them or like see them in their element. And you provided that for a whole lot of people. Like people who had dads that was like Biggie's age and all of that, like they'll get a chance to like, and I've heard that moment was provided for Biggie's son Chris at the film. What was that like?
I mean, you know, I'll get choked up thinking about it. I mean, you know,
we have tissue, just in case.
I don't have I got makeup done once for the day. It has to last all day. Big, you know, was so proud to be a father. I think about, this is true of him and Tupac, like, and I think about Prince this way too, you know, this like rush. When I think about Tupac and Prince, they're all three Geminis, by the way.
Right,
When I think about Tupac and Prince, I think about them like having some sense maybe of like producing a lot of work because maybe they just knew that it was gonna be over, you know? Biggie's not as much work with that double album, like making it a double album. I remember thinking, oh, this could be 2 albums, you should break it up or whatever.
Right.
Like, why are y'all doing 20 songs on Life After Death or whatever? But now I understand, right? And it was the same thing. Why are you rushing to Mary Faye? You just met her 9 days ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, literally, that's what happened. I remember I was in New York. They met at some photo shoot. I go to Detroit. He leaves me this long, he calls me, this is when you call people at home, and says, yo, I married Faith. And I was like, I just hung up on him. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm sleeping. Are you high, right? And he left me this long message. I expected you or all people to understand everybody's mad. And I had to call him back. He left this long message on my mom's voice machine. I'm like, I'm not mad at you. I just don't understand. Like, why'd you wife her? Why is it, you're not going to be monogamous? Like, why,
That's why he called you after the fact. Because if he would have called you before,
I might have talked him out of it. No, but it was the right thing, right? She was the right person to be the co-executor of his estate. Like when I think of the different people that he was messing with at the time, the right person to be CJ's mom. Like, so there are these decisions that are being made for us on another level that are being, and so to watch CJ and Biggie missing out on CJ and Tiana. Yes, he's a legend. Yes, posthumously, he is known worldwide. I think he'd be so surprised to know that you can still drop one of his records in a club, hear it driving down the street, like that he's still so present. He would not have believed that, right? But I think that what he would have wanted more was to get to know his children.
He was a genius. He was a genius and just like, like I got a story to tell and niggas like this is high literary work. Like
and I would share that was our relationship was a lot of reading. I remember when in Tazaki Shange's The Love Space Demands, a book of poetry came out and Crack Annie was in that. And I was like, yo, you have to read. Like I read it on the train and I couldn't wait to get off at Clinton, Washington. And I went straight to Fulton. It was like, yo, babe, read this, I would give him my articles to read. And it wasn't like he wrote down his lyrics, but he was a storyteller, He did that Slick Rick thing of like taking on different voices, but not changing his voice, but having different characters inside of his story,
We're living in a time where we're seeing the biggest moguls being taken down, and I definitely think your work has contributed to that in a major way. I know diehard R. Kelly fans that would not like I would literally fight with them until I felt like I was pulling my hair out. He's a piece of shit. Like, it's the evidence is there, and they didn't switch or flip or get off of him until they actually saw your film. What do you think about or how has like your world been after you put out such a powerful piece of work that has changed so many lives?
I'm glad that you've had that experience, right? And I know that it's true that there's been some shifting, but it's a Sisyphean struggle, I think that the blowback to Me Too had, just like the white lash to Obama was greater than, like Obama was not a radical, he wasn't a disruptor.
The moderate centrist at best.
Moderate centrist who got blocked by, Congress, and so didn't get a lot done, right? And what, I'm not gonna say Jody Cantor or what, even the phrase that Tarana Burke gave us, but Jody Cantor, of course, and them take on Weinstein first. And I even think about, all the work that was done around the church. I think the work that Julie did down in Miami at the Herald around Epstein. So there are these journalists, Jim DeRogatis, of course, was on R. Kelly forever. And so there's this work that's being done and it's like pushing up. And maybe there's like a kind of breakthrough and it feels like a bigger moment than it is. But the truth is that we're in the blowback era, like, Russell Simmons, as soon as he gets accused, hashtags out, not me, right? Like, and mounts this rigorous defense and a smear campaign against his most visible accuser, right? Drew Dixon. And that smear campaign was largely successful. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think about Oprah pulling out of Sundance, a couple days before Sundance on that film. and about how we don't even have a conversation about Russell or Africa Bambaataa in the 50th anniversary, right? I think that there's kind of line drawn, like y'all have R. Kelly and Bill Cosby, that's enough. That's how I felt that Black people, and then by the time Johnny Depp and Amber Heard comes around, then we're just like right back into what Jody and Meg called He Said, She Said. That's the name of their book, right? And the truth about, gender and sexual like crimes and assault and violence as a culture is that it's largely, and rape in particular, is largely underreported. Sexual assault, sexual harassment, 110% of women experience sexual harassment, right? What are we gonna do? Like, I'm walking down the street, I'm about to go into like a friggin' police station and be like, yo, 11 people just, harass me on my way into work, right? And then, exactly. Like, I'm not a carceral feminist. So I don't think that these like questions and solutions and changes are gonna happen inside of our, non-existent like justice system. And so and I'm not like wildly imaginative in terms of solutions when it comes to this stuff either. So I know that there are people who are committed to the work of transformative justice and restorative justice. And I am constantly reading their work, people like Miriam Kaba, Prentice Hemphill. I'm reading their work all the time to try to see a way forward. Belle, of course, is writing about this early with All About Love and a lot of her work around masculinity. Y'all are gonna have to like take up leadership in this work. Like, it's the only thing, actually. It's the only thing that's gonna change it, Surviving R. Kelly was 6 episodes. If an MC as big as, say, Jay or anyone, Kanye, whomever, had done 2 lines about R. Kelly, like literally 20 seconds, it would have had a bigger effect. You know what I'm saying? I remember Jay one Tuesday was like, he's over throwbacks, nigga, button up. And the entire city
it
was
launched one of
wearing
the worst
Oxfords.
fashion eras in Negro history. Like, niggas walking around with big ass button up shirts on and jeans, and you know what I'm saying? I was like, let me give
Reebok Classics, which I loved, right? Before Hoka's, they were the most comfortable shoe ever. They were perfect with a tennis skirt. He had some throwaway line, and all of a sudden, Reebok Classics, So, that would have actually, like what I did in 6 hours could have been done in 20 seconds by like an MC, right? And that work gets undone quickly too. Like, a Kanye can have someone, have multiple people accused in the moment of terrible crimes, gender and sexual crimes. And he'll just have them on stage, no words necessary. Here's me with Marilyn Manson, with whomever, you know what I mean? It's like, so there's this like solidarity around patriarchy. There's this doubling down around patriarchy. There is, because patriarchy is foundational. It predates hip hop. I always say we didn't learn that women ain't shit but bitches and hoes from the B-side of Gin and Juice. We learned about it from the book of Genesis.
Switching lanes to hip hop, I gotta ask you this before we get out of here. I got this from your website. The writer Dream Hampton thinks hip hop is broken, but she can't stop trying to fix it. My question is, has it always been broken in a way and we just evolved into a new kind of broke? Because I think about religion, and I think about like people who go to church, the church today with like Bentleys and Gucci and all that, that's not grandmama's church back in the day when they making dinner after the service, right? Like everything evolves and changes, and so many people who were religious in like the 80s and 90s and all that, like their kids don't even think about going to church at all. And I think about music, how big it's gotten. And it's had its flaws back then, and then it has its flaws now. So, but we're seeing more ownership, and we're seeing like a lot of artists making more money than what they did back in the day. So is it broken in a different way, or are we those people? Because I'm, not speaking for you, but for me, I'm stuck in the 90s. Like I'm stuck in the 90s, and I've been trying to crawl out. It's been very difficult.
Yeah. So, come on into the 21st century. So 25 years into it.
Are we broke in a different way, or are we moving into a better place, or?
Yeah. Almost and we don't have time, but almost everything that you said, I would have some kind of refutation of, right? I think the prosperity gospel, I think about, being from Detroit, I'm from where the first temple number 1 from the Nation of Islam was formed. Nation of Islam, I used to attend. You never learn how to make salat. You never learn about zakat. You don't learn about Ramadan, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You don't take Shahada, right?
Right.
It is a Black capitalist, like economic project around identity and pride and a kind of very flimsy idea of Black economic, it's like a Black capitalist project, right? So Noble Drew Ali was launching something similar.
Right.
Marcus Garvey, for all of his vision, I could kind of reduce his project to like a Black capitalist project, right? So when you talk about prosperity gospel seeming like what you're talking about, first of all, yes.
It's everything Divine, you just said I learned from hip hop. It's crazy because like none of that was in Baltimore. There was no, like we had like the freedom. We had the temple, but it's like we was in the street. Like that was.
No, I feel you.
Know.
I mean, but so were they. But back then, FOI was in the streets like that. In fact, if I were to give them their props, if I weren't to just reduce them to a Black capitalist project, I would say that they were like important violence interrupters in a very critical time when crack had, capitalism is a bloody sport. And when the $1 billion crack industry that we helped invent, right? I know that it was dropped into the hood, but then we turned it into like a thing, a bigger thing than any underground economy before it. Then, yeah, I mean, the nation was one of the people who showed up to try to do some violence interruption in the 80s and 90s. But I'm not even talking about just the Nation of Islam. I'm talking about Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, Father Divine, like these, prosperity gospel and those kind of projects have been around forever, right? Tribe Called Quest is doing a classic example of a date rape, a highly problematic song. So it's not just like Slick Rick talking about treat her like a prostitute. And this is the 80s, right? It's like the groups that we consider conscious too. Like, so it's just embedded. So this is a question of like consent, rape culture. Like, what did you learn as a child? Did you learn that the real problem is false accusations, right? And where did you learn that from? I remember a movie, I can't remember the title, Michael Douglas, Demi Moore, it's Office. Some, kind of not Wall Street, but Wall Street kind of movie. I forgot the name of it, but she's like making a false claim against him. Gone Girl with Ben Affleck, recent film, right? So you have more films about men being set up as if that is what's happening in these streets, as opposed to what I didn't finish that thought, but as opposed to like rape being this underreported crime, highly underreported, right? So then it becomes the conversation in the popular culture is like, is shaped in a way that the terms of the debate, or it's not a debate, but the terms of the conversation have been set wrong, right? So all that's ongoing, right? That's ongoing.
Absolutely.
If you were to, strap Trump to like a lie detector, he would pass if you asked him if he, raped his wife. Because in his mind, addled brain, whatever, he does not think that you can rape property, and
she's a reward.
She belongs to him, know. And by the way, the church teaches him. Not that he's ever been to church, but the church to have and to hold like these vows that we take. To even patriarchy is a project that's about protection and provision, right? So I think that alone is a huge burden to bear. So y'all might want to just divest from it. Then
Absolutely.
So, anyway.
Last question. No, because this is like the conversations we need to have, like on every level. Who would Biggie side with in the Drake and Kendrick beef? If y'all was having a conversation right now.
I hope that like me, Big, would be tapped out, right? I feel you. I'm still being stuck in the 90s. I'm not. Like I just produced a thing in Detroit and I was like, Jack White's my favorite living guitar player. But John Mayer is kind of the heir of Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like, I want different conversations, actually. I don't know what Big would, hopefully he wouldn't be still walking around in like Coogee. I know some of these brothers are like in their velour suits still. And those are the ones that are in trouble right now because you were stuck. You still think that you're in some era. You're releasing press releases from that era, actually, in this moment. So, welcome, come to the 21st century where you can opt in or out,
But I think for me, it's not really about the music. It's more about like the people who I was around in my life that I just don't have access to anymore. So it's that shared memory around the music. It's not the messaging. It's not necessarily the messaging, but it's like the time I share space with people who I can never share space with again. So it's more about that.
Yeah, and that's true. I just happened to be in New York in the early 90s when my neighbors were these people, right? When this is what was popping. I just happened to land in this, you know, in the center of this beautiful storm, right? But we all have that.
That's real. So can you tell everyone when they will be able to see It Was All a Dream?
I can't yet, not
can't
yet.
yet?
No,
Oh.
it's in this festival run.
Okay.
But as soon as I can share, I'll let you know. It's not because I know and can't tell. It's because I don't know yet. We're figuring it out.
It's a beautiful film. We're rooting for you, and
thank you for watching.
And we thank you. We thank you.
Oh, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching Salon Talks. Be sure to subscribe as we feature some of your favorite artists, authors, and more. And while you're here, you might as well watch another video by clicking right here.